Robinson heaving one down the sideline, and he's got Kazmeir over the top. Big side down the sideline. Touchdown. His signature move and his signature performance. Allen, big ball one more time. 58 yards this time.
You're listening to the Bruin Bible. This is your host, Will Decker, bringing you UCLA football content all throughout the year for LA Football Network.
What is up, LAFB fans? Will Decker, your host from the Bruin Bible, and draft is in session. We are here to talk about Bet Online and the good people behind the brand. Football season is officially back, and Bet Online remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player needs, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet all of your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code LAFB to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts. What is up, and welcome to a brand new edition of the Bruin Bible. Will Decker, your host. We are lucky to be joined by Wildcat Authority's very own Jason Scheer in the house. Are you in Tucson right now? Is that where you reside?
Yeah. I've been here for quite a while.
Love it, man. I'm originally from Scottsdale, Arizona myself, so little Arizona ties here and there.
Nice.
Love to see it, man, down in Tucson. We got a game to preview. University of Arizona traveling to the Rose Bowl this weekend to take on your UCLA Bruins. And we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of everything going on. You know, the improvements that have come along, for University of Arizona. The coaching hire that's a familiar Bruin. What's going on in the receiving room with a guy that, may be out this week, would be a huge loss for U of A, and some of the stuff on the defensive side of the football. But, Jason, how I like to start these shows is I want to make it fun. I want to make it a great experience. What have you been binge watching as of late in your family's home, Jason?
Man, that's a good. I'm not a big binge watching guy. We sit down and watch some television, but I'm usually so busy. I'm not a binge watching guy. I got to catch up on a lot of movies. There's a lot of movies out that I got to catch up on. So usually I do the East New York, Chicago PD type of stuff where I don't have to pay attention. But it's kind of on your television, but it's not so deep where you actually have to pay attention to it.
Yeah, Jason, you strike me as an NYPD Blue fan. That's the vibes I'm getting. It's a great show. My dad was all on the NYPD Blue train. We watched in our household a bunch. Well, let's transition to a cool cat in Jedd Fisch, and he's the new University of Arizona head coach. This is his second year. We've seen some tangible improvements, from the year before. A guy that was in the UCLA building when Jim Mora was here in 2017. Mora got fired, actually, and Fisch took over for the last two games as the interim head coach. We've seen recruiting go up. We've saw what he's been able to do, picking the top receiver out of California last year. We've seen what he's been able to do in the transfer portal, getting guys like De Laura and Cowing, who we'll get to in a second. How has the Arizona community, specifically down there in Tucson, embraced the likes of Jedd Fisch, who is, one of the coolest, easygoing coaches you'll find in the country?
Yeah, I mean, at first when he was hired, it was met with a ton of skepticism because this was a guy who hadn't been a head coach before. Not a lot of people knew of him. He wasn't, he had been a successful coordinator, but it wasn't like a household type of name. But he basically hit the ground running and did everything that Kevin Sumlin did it. He got out in the community. He was honest with people saying, look, it's a rebuild. We're going to take time. Hired a staff where everybody has to recruit. And if you don't recruit, you can't coach for them. And really, he's just done a job where I would say most people now approve of him and are willing to be patient and see what he's building. And like you said, he's a really easygoing guy. He's in the community, really nice. And, you could just go up to him. And I think compared to the last few head coaches Arizona's had, Fisch has probably bought himself more time just because of his overall approach.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the tangible improvements. He inherited such an Arizona team that was in a complete rebuild, 1-11 last year. And you just look at the, what he's been able to do, 3-6 now. And, we've seen it with the offense specifically. The passing game is as good as it's been in Tucson in a very, very long time. And that starts with the Washington State transfer, Jayden De Laura. what he's been able to put together. 22 touchdown passes to only 8 interceptions. And I know he got stifled a little bit against a very tough Utah defense, but the stat that comes to mind for me and De Laura, 4 out of his last 5 games coming into the Utah game, he had thrown for over 380 yards or more in each of those games. Give me your take on De Laura, because I love what I saw from him at Washington State. This guy's still a sophomore. He's probably coming back next year. There's a lot of room where you could see Arizona kind of becoming what Oregon State was, last year, where they kind of break out a little bit, get to a bowl game, and kind of establish themselves as a team that's ready to get back into action.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that watched Arizona last year knows how bad that quarterback situation was. It was one of the worst that I've ever seen, the worst I've ever covered. They went through like 5 quarterbacks. They finally thought they had one in Jordan McLeod, and then he gets hurt for the year. And their offense was invisible. I mean, it didn't matter how good the defense played. The offense just couldn't score. So the top offseason priority for Fisch was to go and get a quarterback. De Laura enters the portal, and they have him like a day later. I mean, he was pretty much said, you're going to start. And the offense has completely changed. I mean, Fisch can run more of the offense that he wants to run. I think the thing that is most impressive about De Laura is his ability to avoid sacks, because Arizona's offensive line is solid, but it's not great. But his ability to avoid sacks is pretty remarkable when you watch the game. He hasn't taken a ton, and he's become more of a runner. But even when he's not running, it's just the ability to make guys miss and find the open play downfield. I think he might lead the nation in explosive passes. He's willing to throw the deep ball. He likes to throw the deep ball, and just the offense overall is just completely different. And he's a big part of that. Fisch loves him, and they have a great relationship. And Fisch always reminds people, like, look, I've only had the guy for 9 games, and so we're kind of building that relationship, and next year it'll even be on another level. So that offense revolves around him, and he does really well with it.
Yeah, and to the stat you mentioned, this was coming into the Utah game last weekend. Jayden De Laura had 44 completions of 20 or more yards. That led all Power 5 schools. So Jayden De Laura, I mean, he's slinging the rock there. And it doesn't come without a balanced rushing attack that you guys have been able to put together as well. I'm looking at just the rushing numbers that are raw. 266 carries, over 1,200 yards. As a team, you guys are averaging 4.7 yards a carry. That's almost 5 yards a touch with the run there, and you guys are doing it in a variety of different ways. Michael Wiley looks more like the bell cow for you guys at the moment. But, DJ Williams, Jonah COLEMAN, everyone's kind of getting involved and chipping in. What have you seen from the running back room?
Yeah, I think Arizona would actually run the ball more if the score didn't dictate that they had to throw it. I mean, it's just the defense isn't very good, and the offense just has to throw more. And if they could run more because of the score, they would. But Michael Wiley's been solid. He's much improved from last season. DJ Williams is a guy where I would actually expect him to get more carries moving forward. He got to campus the day before fall camp started. Might have actually been the day of. So it took him time to get in shape. And so Jedd Fisch has said, look, he's only got that into shape, finally football shape, the last couple of weeks. And so I would expect him to get more carries. Speedy Luke, freshman, really, I mean, he's earned the name Speedy. Had a really nice run against Utah. He was hurt with a really badly sprained ankle, needed surgery. He finally came back against Utah. And then they have Jonah COLEMAN. And so they'll use a bunch of guys. It's probably Wiley and Williams. But if the game is close, I think Arizona is going to run more. But the problem is that a lot of times it's not. But, Arizona, when they run, they generally have success, and they're able to kind of dictate tempo and things like that.
Yeah. And, like I mentioned, 4.7 yards a carry as a team is a very, very impressive number. So, I get, you're down in games, you got to throw the football, but that run game, I mean, that's something UCLA's defense cannot sleep on coming into this game, because they'll sneak up on you and they can make some plays in that room. Wide receiver room, and very, very strong group. And one of the stats that I saw, from per Brett Gleason, somebody that covers University of Arizona, counting Dorian Singer and McMillan, you're going to have to pronounce his first name for me. I've tried in a variety of different ways. I don't know how to do it. Have combined for 700-yard receiving games this season. From 2018 to 21, Arizona had just 9 100-yard receiving performances. So the receiving room has been explosive, and it starts with Cowing, a guy that came in from UTEP, UTSA, Texas San Antonio. and he put up
right. It was UTEP.
UTEP. Okay, UTEP. And he put up some very, very explosive numbers there. And kind of in the back of my mind was we met him at Pac-12 Media Day. Could not have been a nicer kid, originally from Arizona. I was like, that's, it's great that he's doing that at UTEP. He's clearly a Division I player. I want to see that at the next level. And it took less than a game. I mean, the San Diego State game, you just watch that and you go, oh, this guy's meant, for the Pac-12. He's going to turn some heads out here. Cowing, though, as good as he has been this year, and he's been awesome, 65 catches, 846 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He may not play this week. I saw the, press conference with Jedd Fisch saying that he is questionable coming into this game. Do you have any more, information on Cowing as we head to Saturday for this game?
Yeah, I think questionable is probably the right word. He practiced today, very limited though. And, he was running on it gingerly. I could see him playing and it being a lesser role. I mean, we're still a few days away from the game. I could see him being held out. I mean, it is probably up into the game. We'll get another official update on Thursday from Fisch, but I wouldn't rule him out just yet. But I would probably lean to him being questionable to doubtful at this time.
Yeah. And I mean, McMillan is making a case to be true freshman of the year within the Pac-12, just what he's been able to put up. 35 catches, 610 yards, 7 touchdowns. But the thing that's most impressive to me is the yards per catch, 17.4 yards per catch. How do you pronounce his first name is my first question. Second, what has made this kid stand out? I know he was the highest recruited, player that Arizona had gotten in some time, maybe ever. You may know that better than I. But how has McMillan been separating himself on the football field as a true freshman?
Yeah, it's Tetairoa, but we just call him T-Mac.
T-Mac.
It's much easier. But yeah, I mean, I believe he's the highest rated recruit Arizona's ever landed. And the thing about him is his catch radius is insane. He's able to catch passes that aren't even necessarily like balls that are accurate. I mean, he's had a ton of one-handed catches. The first practice of fall camp that we saw him, I believe it was fall camp, that we saw him finally come in and participate. It might have been in the spring. The first catch he made was a one-handed grab, right above the safety, and everyone was like, oh, okay. And this kid is different. And that's the thing. He's different than the guys that Arizona has gotten in the past. He's every bit as good as we were told he was coming in. And he started off slowly a little bit, but he's really, he's not the fastest guy. He's gotten faster here. But the thing is, he's big, he's strong. You can't really push him off the line of scrimmage. And then his catch radius and ability to even go up with one hand and really secure it makes him really, really good.
Yeah. And, to pivot to the defensive side of the football now, I feel like both these teams, offensively, they may be a little bit differently matched. I think Arizona is more of the passing team, as we've talked about, Jayden De Laura, whereas UCLA is Chip Kelly, classic spread offense. We're going to run the football down your throat. But what I will say is Arizona State gave us a game last week. They slowly climbed back into the game. And the talent level that you guys have compared to Arizona State, in my opinion, is a lot higher in terms of a De Laura, a guy that's been the Pac-12 for 2 years as a starter, a Cowing that, if he plays, he's probably going to get around 1,200 yards receiving this year. A T-Mac, like you mentioned, a Dorian Singer. Both of these teams have issues on the defense. And where I would be worried if I was a U of A fan, and a huge advantage for a UCLA, is you guys are 125th out of 131 teams in the run game. And Chip Kelly does that as well as anybody. Pass defense, slightly better. I think it's 98th in the country. What are some bright spots on the defense, to maybe sway my opinion? Because I'm just looking at statistics. That doesn't usually paint the whole picture is what I'm trying to say.
I'm not sure I can sway your opinion because I agree. I mean, the defense is bad. There's just no other way. And there are guys, if you're an Arizona fan and you're looking for positives, it's that the last few weeks, Arizona has basically said, you know what, we're playing freshmen. The older guys weren't cutting it. They're true freshmen. They're going to learn the hard way at times, but we're playing them. And so Ephesians Prysock, true freshman corner, true freshman on the defensive line now, true freshman linebacker, and Jacob Manu. They've got 6 true freshmen, I think, that played on the defensive side of the ball against Utah. And they play hard, and I think they're going to be very good eventually. But it's really tough to throw them in the environment as a true freshman and say, go do certain things. But that's the positive on the Arizona side, but the problem is that's in the future. And right now, Christian Roland Wallace is a really good corner. I think sometimes that gets lost because Arizona's pass rush isn't there, but I would put him amongst the best corners in the Pac-12. And beyond that, I mean, it's really tough to be positive about the defense. It's just not very good.
Yeah. And one of the guys that I would point out to, Hunter Echols, I think if he can string together a nice, 3 or 4 game stretch, we could be talking about maybe an all Pac-12 honorable mention on the defensive line, or maybe even sneak into that third team if he gets into the 7.5, 8 sack range. So he's been great. He's a senior. I guess he's probably the leader of the defense if I were to put that on as an outsider looking in. Give me your thoughts on Hunter Echols, coming off the line of scrimmage on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, I mean, he was with the defensive coordinator, Johnny Nansen, at USC. And when he entered the portal, Arizona went right after him. And really good kid, very vocal on the defense, like you mentioned, one of the leaders, and probably the most consistent defensive lineman. He may not be a superstar, but on a line that lacks a superstar, he's kind of the guy where it feels like oftentimes if Arizona needs a big tackle or a sack, he's involved in them. I would actually say he maybe, even though his numbers aren't crazy, he's maybe exceeded expectations, because when you look at his career at USC, I mean, he's playing more snaps this season than he did all those years combined. His production is higher, and he's played relatively well. It'd be nice to have him for another year, but he's pretty much done his job this season.
Yeah, Hunter Echols, former USC kid, so he wants to be UCLA pretty bad this upcoming weekend. Jason Scheer, Wildcat Authority, man, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on the show and talking Bruins with us, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Bruin Bible, we are officially